Hello and welcome to this webinar from Meeting Expectations titled Zooming Out, Learn How to Engage Your Virtual Event Attendees. I'm Joey Sermons, Senior Manager of Digital Marketing with Meeting Expectations, and I'm joined by two of my coworkers, Beth Chitnis and Christine Hilgert, and also by author and Hall of Fame keynote speaker, Dan Thurmon. Before we get started, I'd like to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be available in the next few days on our website at meetingexpectations.com. During the webinar, all attendees will be muted, but we do invite and encourage questions and ask you to enter your questions in the questions box in the webinar control panel. We will try to answer as many questions as we can during the Q&A segment at the end of the webinar. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves and tell us what experience they bring to our discussion today. And let's start with you, Beth.
Thank you, Joey. As he said, my name is Beth Chitnis. I am a Vice President of the Association Management Business Unit at Meeting Expectations, and I serve as the Executive Director for the International Association of Insurance Professionals. I have been with Meeting Expectations for about 14 years now, having served in multiple roles, working with a variety of associations during this time. And just like many of you, I believe joining us today, my first true experience with a virtual meeting was when we made the decision with IAIP in April to shift to virtual for the June event. And over the span of those 60 days, me and everybody on the team, we all ended up wearing the different hats of visionary, scheduler, producer, scriptwriter, tech support, contingency planner, and every other position that exists that are just amplified with a shift that happens that fast.
Thanks, Beth. And what about you, Christine?
Hello, I'm Christine Hilgert. I am a Senior Vice President here at Meeting Expectations, and I have mostly been working with meeting management from our association clients and some corporate clients. I've been with Meeting Expectations, I'm just going to say over 20 and leave it at that. Once you get past that mile marker, you don't keep adding them on. But my role here and what has been transitioning through all of this from meetings into the virtual space has been very useful, working with our planners, our team, and our clients on their agendas and how to convert what they do at a face-to-face event into a virtual space. And I actually like to add a little fun to every meeting. So with this, I'm going to put out our first question to the audience, Joey. What is your favorite Pixar character? And I'm going to go ahead and ask Beth. Beth, who's yours?
I have to go with Woody from Toy Story.
Very nice. I've got his buddy right here, of course. And Dan, who's your favorite Pixar character?
Well, Beth, I was going to say Woody too. I love Woody, but I'll pick the little boy from Up, because that was just such a powerful, impactful movie to me, and I loved his little journey which changed his life. That whole thing was just so powerful.
And that is as easy as it gets, is putting out some kind of a networking starter, an icebreaker, and hopefully the chat is blowing up with some great characters. And with that, Joey, back to you.
Thanks. And I'll have to say my favorite Pixar character is Frances the Ladybug from A Bug's Life. And with that, Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks, Joey, and great to be with you all. My name is Dan Thurmon. I'm the author of the book Off Balance on Purpose. I am a professional speaker, Hall of Fame speaker, member of the National Speakers Association for over 26 years. So I've been deep in this business for a long time. I'm also the immediate past president of NSA and very active in a lot of high-level mastermind groups. And so it's been interesting to be in that conversation about what all of my colleagues are doing and my clients. And really, a lot of this is just, discovery that's taken place over time, and invention, and just different solutions that have come to the table. It's been so exciting. And we've done dozens of events ourselves, and some of those with Meeting Expectations. In fact, our first big event was OATUG, which was just kind of the finish line in terms of building our studio and launching it in a huge way. So great to be your partner.
Thanks very much for that. And with that, let's jump into the questions. We'll start with you, Beth. So each audience has different engagement needs. How did you and your team approach determining how best to engage the IAIP audience through a virtual event?
Yeah, when we first started to envision what we wanted to create for the virtual experience, we were first trying to consider how do the members engage during the in-person event, and is there a way that we can translate that into the virtual environment? And with IAIP, attendees come to the event for the community, for the friendships, for the celebrations. It's our big annual meeting each year, and of course for the education. And so shifting the education felt like the easy piece. How do you shift the community? How do you shift that experience? And that's where it took a little bit more thought to try to pull that one together. And we wanted to make sure that within each session, each component of the event, that attendees had the opportunity to engage with each other. And so ultimately, for us, it was the chat, it was the Q&A, it was that opportunity for the members and attendees to engage with each other. And I gotta be honest, I was overwhelmed by the amount of activity that happened in there. Attendees were chatting with each other and the speakers throughout the entire 3-day event, asking questions of each other. They were answering questions that were asked or responding to prompts from the speakers, or simply just chatting with each other. And so we also made sure to use that chat feature on the production side to be able to share resources or have those URLs for the websites that were shared or discussed by a presenter ready to go and posted into the chat the moment that they were addressed during the presentations. And so for us, the engagement in that chat and Q&A feature was critical for us.
Great, thanks. And what were some of your other considerations when you were building crafting a virtual agenda? And how important was it that it's more than just a series of seminars, a bunch of webinars and informational sessions?
Well, I think to that last point, how to create something that's more than just a series of informational sessions. And so for us, I think the first key element that we brought into this planning process was variety. We knew that some of the components that we were going to offer would be best delivered live, and that other components could be offered as a pre-recorded event or session that was then broadcast live to the audience. And then that variety of the types of sessions, and that's what our attendees experience when we're in person at an event. So anything from a general session to our membership meeting to the education breakouts, and how they were presented is what we wanted to take into consideration. So some of those were a presenter that was using a PowerPoint as a visual aid, or having a panel discussion like you see here now, to be able to have a variety of faces on screen so that audience wasn't seeing the same thing every session over those 3 days. And with that, another component was the length of the session. Sitting in one spot in an in-person meeting for an extended period of time can be tough, but it's just so much more difficult in a virtual environment when you're sitting in front of a computer. And so, we designed 2-hour blocks, which that seems like a really long time in those 2-hour blocks, but within it, how did we chunk that 2-hour block? There were a variety of sessions. There were engagement breaks in between those sessions. And a lot of our sessions, on purpose, we intentionally designed them to use sort of that TED Talk style, 15 to 20-minute presentations that you could have these micro topics. Great to be able to cover a variety of subjects and keep the attention of the audience as we shifted to new topics more frequently. And one last consideration, which might seem obvious, but I feel like I just need to share it, is know the time zone. We had attendees that were joining us from the East Coast to Hawaii, and many of you might be planning events that are global. And so understanding what time it's going to be when your audience is joining, and what are they going to be experiencing. For Hawaii, they were joining at 6 a.m. their time, which was super easy. And they were there with their breakfast and coffee and ready to join us, which was amazing to see.
Christine, this one's for you. Tell us a little bit more in general about brainstorming for the virtual events that we've done at Meeting Expectations, and how you go about crafting the agendas.
It's a lot of fun. It's just like we would do for any actual event. We really start with what are those objectives you're trying to attain for your corporate brand, for your association membership growth, or your partnerships and your sponsorships, really taking all the elements that come into play at your face-to-face, and then how can you transition that over into virtual. So, a lot of the key elements to any meeting is the education, the networking, and for associations, definitely membership, or if it's corporate, the branding. So you take those different areas, how does that flow into your current agenda? And as Beth eloquently put, how do you take that agenda and now really schedule it for a virtual event? And I think some key points I want to reiterate to hers is a lot of our clients come and say, we want to transition. Well, that's great, but you may have had 5 different breakout timeframes. You may need to bring that down to 3 because, as Beth pointed out, we can't expect people to be on a computer for endless hours. So we take their agenda, we start playing around with it, we put a little side note. It's going to be live, pre-recorded, semi-live, and then we also put how many minutes for each thing so that at the very bottom of that day, we calculate the number of hours your audience is going to be face to face. And I just worked on one yesterday, and in 3 days, it's going to be over 20 hours. That's probably too much. And we need to start taking to see how we slim this back just a little bit, but really take a look at that, because that's the key factor, is keeping them engaged.
As you're going through and building these agendas, why is it important to create a narrative for your virtual audience engagement?
Well, you really have to think that in this time frame, we came together face to face for relevancy. That hasn't changed. You still need to keep your message relevant. If you're an association, like I said, celebrating your audience, celebrating your membership, having your key speakers come to with their latest research for your attendees. And for a big brand, a corporate brand, if it's a franchise, they need to speak with their franchisees. If it's a brand that's trying to do a product launch, you really have to keep your relevancy and know how will that transpire through your networking, your education, and just bringing everyone together with some little bit of fun added to it.
Dan, this one's for you. Going back, and you mentioned your first big virtual event with the OATUG, and I was lucky enough to be a part of that. How did you refine your performance to engage viewers when virtual events started to become a thing and became more ubiquitous?
Well, the first thing that had to change was my mindset, really, because for a lot of years, I resisted the idea of doing webinars or virtual programs. Unlike some of my colleagues, I viewed myself as more of a live presenter, a live performer. That's how I grew up, and I love the energy exchange, and it's where I thrive. My speeches play really big because of the physicality of what I do, the integration of different stunts and demonstrations and audience interaction. And so the thought was, I don't even want to bother trying to do something like that virtually. Well, when there were no more virtual events, all our meetings were rescheduling or converting to virtual, when no live events were taking place, then my mind just changed. It said, well, wait a second. What if virtual could not be like a less than version of what I used to do, but it could actually be more? What are some things you can accomplish virtually that you could not do in a live space? And that just changed everything. I started to think about the references in my life growing up in television and people that I see on camera all the time, and how I can repurpose those ideas and how I can use our resources. We are very fortunate 2 years ago to have built out a virtual studio, which is where I'm at. We didn't do it for live events. We did it for just pre-recording videos or products. But I thought, well, that could be of use. We learned about the technology. I increased the relevance of my message to these timely moments. And I'm very fortunate because my message was already extremely well positioned. I wrote the book Off Balance on Purpose, and the world is extremely off balance right now. And so it's all about how do you bring that intentionality to what you do and really become something more. I found it really liberating, actually, to be at the front edge of that. And I decided, well, if Dan Thurmon's going to do virtual, I got to go big. And I've got to deliver to that brand expectation, which is, this is the guy that can open a conference or close a conference or bring something extra special to that need, not just with the message, but also with the experience. And you'll see the studio in just a little bit, but that'll just kind of give you an idea of the process that went first in my thinking and then into action.
Yeah, that was, again, it was very neat to see, having seen you speak to live audience in the past and take that talk and revamp it for virtual. It was super neat to see that take place. Christine, actually Beth, back to you about the IAIP event. You also kept folks engaged between sessions. How do you think that affected the overall attendee experience?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we chose to do 2-hour blocks. And in between the sessions within that 2-hour block, we needed a way to be able to keep the audience engaged, to be able to transition from one component to the next. And so we worked with a team, amazing volunteers that helped us pull this off and offered a variety of engagement breaks. For one of them, we brought members up onto the stage. So I use that in air quotes because they became panelists. They were invited to turn on their camera, turn on their microphone, and they competed in a scavenger hunt. And so we had some hosts that were calling out items like an umbrella, an orange, a highlighter, and our attendees were participating from a home office, or they might have been at work in their office. And so it was so much fun to see them jump up and run to try to find the items and rush back to see who could get it first. And I will say, as an insurance association, our president did draw the line that scissors could not be one of the items on that scavenger hunt. So nobody was running with scissors during that. Another break was we played trivia, Hollywood awards ceremonies theme right before our awards presentation. We had 2 hosts, 2 volunteers that came onto the stage. They read the questions, had fabulous banter and energy and engagement between the 2 of them as the audience was answering the trivia questions using the poll feature. So great way to be able to get the audience engaged, be able to just bring a little bit of variety into what the attendees were seeing. And another thing, one more, is that we offered virtual happy hours. So this wasn't engagement between the sessions, but leading up to the conference. And so we had a virtual progressive welcome party, a chance for attendees before the 3 days of the conference to be able to get used to the platform and to be able to connect and network before we got into the actual 3-day event, which was, again, another fabulous opportunity to engage.
Christine, do you have anything to add to that? What have you seen keeping folks engaged between sessions with some of the events that you've worked with?
Yeah, and the first one to make sure that they can be engaged is actually to put your out of office on. When you travel to a show, you do put your out of office on. So treat this in the same manner. So that helps you stay engaged and you're not so much feeling like this pressure is coming towards you. But to add to what Beth had, chair stretching, having someone come in and do some kind of light yoga in between, to get people moving, or just give them the break to step away for a few minutes. It's okay, because we all need to step away for a few moments, even if we're at a live show. So it's important to schedule breaks. I would say an average is about 10 minutes. And there's lots of little things you can do. And one we've thrown out is collecting, Dan, as we were coming onto this, we were talking about walk-in music or music as we're waiting. You could collect music favorites from your audience through the registration process and maybe play a little bit of that off of a Spotify account. There's lots of things to do that are very low cost and easy to implement.
And you've been, Christine, involved in several different virtual events lately. In all of those and seeing them come together, what moments have excited you most as an event planner?
That's a great question, because I know we all feel a little fatigued from it all. But I will say, I think the importance is you're getting your community together. Whoever that community is, it's important to be together. We all cherish that moment. And when we participate in our associations, it's because we have a passion for something. And to collectively bring those people together, if we can't do it face to face, this is a great option. We are very fortunate to have a number of platforms from low cost to high cost. We have plenty of ways to keep those engagements going. And I think it's just making sure you have that, because we all want that. We all are. I'm a meeting planner, so I participated in IMAX. I thought it was a beautiful event because it connected me with people of like mind. Beth engages with association groups, and we do this because we love what we do. And I think we have to keep that in mind. These people belong to your organization or are part of that message for a reason, and it's that passion. And we could still have that passion connected here, just a little different.
Yeah, definitely. Dan, so your message, your presentation helps people embrace uncertainty and to lead change. How do you think that event organizers could harness that idea and build that into a virtual viewer experience?
Well, I think, event organizers have been embodying that idea in the creation and the bold moves to go virtual and to have that event. One of the ways I would suggest they could do it with confidence is to embrace those live moments. Everyone's struggling with, should I pre-record things and just broadcast, or should we do this live? And I always advocate for live. I agree, Beth, that it's kind of nice to have a mix of elements. One of the things we do for our clients is we go live from the studio for that customized presentation, and we have a backup keynote that is kind of more generic, but still lands and still contributes a great effect. We have that ready to go in case there were anything that were to go wrong, but we've invested heavily and practiced a lot to be ready for this moment. And I think that is the definition of embracing uncertainty. We do what we can, and then we just go with it. And I think audiences have been so understanding and forgiving of moments or hiccups or bobbles. And it's kind of like when you're watching live TV, whether it's your favorite team or your favorite speaker or broadcaster or sermon or whatever it is. There's a difference when it is live, and we know it, and it just becomes so much more interesting. One of the things I like to say is, even though we can't share space right now, at least we can share these moments. And if you're live, you genuinely are sharing real-time moments. I even think the whole concept of it being a virtual presentation, we're stuck with that term, but it really is a misnomer. No, it's a real presentation, right? It's happening at a distance, but there's nothing fake about it. I'm here, you're there, neither one of us is imaginary. It's not virtual, it's real. It's just a little bit different. One of the other ways to build on the interactive piece Christine mentioned is you reminded me, Christine, one of the things we've done for our clients is we actually took a workshop experience where I teach the entire audience how to juggle. And we did this virtually and built it into the flow of a conference. So we can do like the first ball, then the second, then the third. We have these pre-printed with our clients' logos. And so they get this in advance, usually as part of a meeting kit with other elements that they have that they can kind of interact with physically. And this gets them moving, it gets them backed up from their chairs at a safe distance, and really gives them something fun to do on those breaks and something tangible, to the experience that they can then share with the people in their lives. So there's just, the opportunities are wide open, and we're all inventing. It really is exciting.
That's a super neat idea. And so, Dan, from your perspective, what do you think are the top 3 advantages of a virtual, or shall we say online presentation?
Sure. Well, the first advantage is that it really is much more personal. When you're looking at a camera lens and someone is watching on their device, it's you and them. And it really kind of doesn't matter how many people are in the audience. To the viewer, it can feel very much like it's just for you. And so to understand that, you can kind of build that component and that softness and sensitivity into the intention of the entire meeting, rather than being on stage to a mass of thousands where we have the shared experience of hundreds or thousands in a room together, which is awesome. It's very different. And so I think that can be used as an advantage. Second thing is, it is more efficient. I've found that you can accomplish a lot more with time virtually than you generally could on stage and in a live environment, because you don't have the housekeeping and the settling in and the transitions between sessions and just the efficiency of getting there in terms of travel. And we'd all used to burn days just to be at the event and be where we needed to be. Now we can open those meetings up to everyone everywhere and really have that opportunity. And then the last thing is, the effectiveness. Just being able to really focus on an audience's attention, to use the elements at your disposal, like graphics, videos, and just to build that concept into a very linear plan, or a very kind of intentional plan of how that information is unfolded. I found you could really land a concept with a lot more clarity. So again, personal, efficient, and effective.
Great, thanks. Beth, your team delivered experiences that kept participants moving. So tell us about the exercise sessions and how attendees responded to those.
I guess that scavenger hunt could be considered one of the exercise sessions for the few that participated in it. But for our in-person events, we have been incorporating fit activities or exercise sessions like yoga, self-defense, swim aerobics for a while now. And so we knew we wanted to incorporate some of those elements into the virtual environment as well. And so again, using the breaks in between the components or those sessions, we have a member who is a certified yoga instructor, and he would have been on site with us leading one of those 7 a.m. sessions. And instead, we transitioned to a 15-minute session each day. And it was chair yoga. So all the attendees needed was a sturdy chair at the space that they were in, and that they could follow along. And so he helped with stretching your neck, your back, your shoulders. And attendees were commenting in the chat throughout this saying, this is fabulous. I can save this 15-minute piece of this recording, and I can do this every day from now on. And so a piece of the conference that can live on for our attendees, that got them engaged, got them moving. And even if you don't want to do yoga, to just be able to sit back, and the soothing voice that Danny had while he did it was great for the attendees. So a great way to be able to build that into the overall flow of the event.
Very neat. Christine, you, as you mentioned, have been with the company for over 20 years and have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to customizing event experiences in general.
Mm-hmm.
What are your top 3 tips for the folks in our audience on how to create a virtual event that becomes a truly engaging experience?
You know, to Dan's point, don't be scared. Take a look at what you do, what's been resonating and successful for you. It can work. You can make it happen. It just may be slightly different. I've worked on everything from what would I don't even call it, Dan, I'm with you. I don't want to call it virtual anymore. Alternative run. We're going to run together. Beth and we're all going to run, and we can post a photo with a silly hat, or I ran with a Pixar character today, and post that. So that's part of a session that you did do some exercise. We have another group, a big part of their evening event is doing a movie screening. You could still watch the movie and have this chat together and discussion points, and then do some breakouts from it. So there's nothing wrong. Just take a look. Don't be scared, because it can be done. And you could do it from a high budget, a low budget, a medium budget. You can really figure out what's going to fit for you. We've had songwriters come in and give a little history of some of the music they've written, and then play a couple little tunes for a few minutes, and very engaging. Games, you can have lots of team building companies have transitioned to doing alternative type event activities online, and from museum hunts and everything. So there's lots of fun things to do. I think that you just have to take a look at what would resonate with your audience and what has been successful, and then let's talk about it, because it can happen.
Very neat. These last couple of questions are for any or all of you, so please feel free to jump in. Has there been anything that has surprised you about attendee engagement for the events that you've worked virtually, so to speak? And I'm with you, we need to come up with a new term for that. But what has surprised you?
I'll go first. I'm going to jump in. We have a client that was an expo, and it was very critical for people to come to the expo. It was a buying show. Honestly, I was throwing a Hail Mary to that board of directors that this could happen, honestly. And they bought into it. So all of a sudden we're like, okay, now we got to do this. And it was so successful. I was so surprised, like Beth said, and she'll probably reiterate, the engagement. We grabbed an audience that normally would not participate, which was awesome. And we had the key players within the industry very engaged to it. So I was very happy it came off with some great success, but it was a great story. So I'm very, very proud of that moment for us.
Yeah, I would say that the engagement of the audience surprised me. You know, we did what we could to build a platform and designed the event to encourage it, and they just blew me away. But what beyond that is, you know, during the education sessions, if the presenter was asking questions or asking for prompts from the audience, we were getting responses from way more attendees than you would get at an in-person event. And the presenters, the speakers then were able to identify those comments and say, well, let's bring you on stage, share more, expand on what this comment was. But everybody had a chance to participate. And so, to be honest, this is something that we're looking at now when we are back in person. How can we keep that level of engagement that we saw in the virtual environment? And now we're going to figure out how do we translate that to the in-person event. So that's something that we're looking forward to.
Dan, have you seen anything that surprised you?
Yeah, well, anything, everybody's thinking about that. How do we keep what's working and bring it with us to the future? And that, again, was the investment in the studio. It's like, this is going to be here for a long, long time. I think engagement has been very strong. One of the interesting things I'll throw out here, doesn't quite fit your question, but just it could be useful. With the National Speakers Association, our big event is called Influence, and we do it once every summer, a couple thousand people attending, breakouts and keynotes. The decision was made, I thought it was really innovative, to deliver all of those virtual breakouts in advance in the months leading up to the conference. They had a little time. And so rather than trying to deliver all that content at once, they just dripped it out. Twice a week, you'd get each would be a virtual breakout. And they were really delivered at a high level and very relevant because everybody was experiencing these issues in real time. And it gave us this ramp to lead up to the live event and kept people more engaged. And so the engagement became a 3-month experience rather than just a 3-day event.
Great point.
And last question, and I'll go around to each of you, so be thinking about it. What is one piece of advice you'd offer to the folks in our audience who are right now working on preparing their own virtual events? And we'll go in alphabetical order. So Beth, you're in the hot seat first.
It takes a village. If you are on site with your set team, I still had that same amazing team for the virtual piece, but it took more support from others within Meeting Expectations for us to execute this. So everything from the production to managing the chat and the Q&A, the tech support for the audience, the attendees. So I will say it will take one more person than what you think it will need.
Christine, what about you?
She took mine. I could say yes, you definitely need a good staff. You actually still need your planning staff. You still need a lot of people, your registration staff. So I'll add, because she took mine, I would say that, you also need to be prepared. We use different technologies in the background to keep our team engaged. So just like if you're on show site, something's happening, we're all used to be on radios or texting each other. We're usually using some type of communication tool in the background for everyone who's participating. So I think that's a key factor.
And Dan, how about you?
Yeah, great points. I would say embrace your creativity and the opportunity to do something new and different. Don't feel like you have to replicate what's done in the past, because this is all new, and this forced innovation is liberating all of us to try new things, to try new ideas. If not now, then when could you really make a bold move and do something that reflects your unique brand, your unique interests, your audience, your organization in a way that is a little bit experimental, because people will understand it. And one of the great phrases that I love to use is, another right answer is. And so when you have the first idea, don't stop there. Just say, okay, well, that's a great answer. What's another right answer? And keep going until you find something that really excites you. And then you'll know you're really into an event that will not only inspire you, but inspire others. Last thing I'll say is for virtual presenters, if you're preparing your own virtual presentation, I have a lot of this, that would be a different topic altogether. But one of the things I would say is watch yourself on camera. As painful as it is, go back and watch the recordings and learn, because you could only understand that connection with an audience and how you're really doing it if you watch yourself and learn from it and kind of pour that intention into the lens itself. It picks up everything. It picks up what you're thinking. It picks up your level of confidence and your energy. And so you've got nothing to prove, but a lot to share. Just lean in, be you, and just presume that your audience is with you and they're going to go with it. Take them on a ride.
Well, this has been a great discussion so far, so thank you all. and we're doing really, really good on time. So we'd like to turn it over to Dan for about 10 minutes. And Dan, can you tell us and show us a little bit more about how you took your very, very active and physical presentation and made it work as a virtual presentation? And again, we got to find another word for that. And Beth and Christine, let's turn off our cameras and mics and turn it over to Dan, and please show us around your studio.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, I think we might be stuck with the term virtual presentation, at least for a little while, but it is something good to think about, whether that is actually the right term. Again, my influences were, how could I do this better? What have I learned from? What's really impacted me through a screen in my life? And how could I create an environment that would take an audience on a similar journey? It's actually 3 different sets, and I thought the best way to really show it to you is to demonstrate how it works. And so consider this like a 10-minute compressed keynote experience. We're going to touch on some ideas. This is the first set. This is the library. This is not generally where I start a program. Usually it's where I end a program or go to a story or an important idea or just that one-on-one moment where I really want to be there with the audience. Usually I begin over here. This is the action room of the DT live stream studio. This is a place where I can be up and moving. I have the camera here and I've got a second camera. But really what I want to talk to you about is my book and my concept being off balance on purpose. And what is your relationship with uncertainty? How do you engage with that? And how do you recognize, yeah, we are off balance in so many different ways. Our foundations have been rocked. Everything is different in terms of how you run a meeting, how you work, how you get to work, how you get your food, your entertainment, how your kids go to school, what you do with your free time. And it's not going to change really anytime soon. Uncertainty is all around us. So the question is not how do you make it go away, but how do you position yourself on top of it? And if you watch closely, you'll see I'm not really balanced. I'm balancing. I'm making constant adjustments and corrections, working hard. But after all this work and all this effort, I'm still right here. I haven't gone anywhere. I'm just a lot more exhausted. This is how most people engage with uncertainty. They say, how do I protect myself? What I want you to do is to lean in again to those moments of opportunity and change and say, even though I didn't see all this coming, how can I make it mine? My journey of learning, and really take advantage of how it can change me in a very, very positive way. Balance isn't what you get. Balance is what you do. Making adjustments and choices about where you spend your time, what you focus on, where your resources go, and how you will think and direct that energy, and how you will live your life. I use in my presentations juggling as a metaphor for a lot of things, but really it helps us to think about focus, about integration, and about how we can manage complexity without becoming overwhelmed. Also in the realm of life integration, work and life, if we could roll that video. One of the things we've been dealing with now is that all of the aspects of your life have been compressed and revealed to be not 5 different things: your work, relationships, your health, your spirit, and your passions or your personal interests, but really one thing: your life. And these don't have to be independent projects or mutually exclusive. They are so connected. And if we were to connect them all to each other, then we could really find the strength of that pattern and what I like to call the infinity sign or the infinite loop. We're always learning and growing and changing. And these are called lifelines. We break down this content to talk about how can we connect our passions to our health and our spirit and our work and our relationships, and build this motion, build this interaction in our life where they don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can be mutually supportive, unleash more of your creative potential, more of your uniqueness, and more of your personal capacity for change. Let's go to class. Over in this space, we can really go deep into concepts and models, illustrations, and break down ideas into their forms into their action steps. One of the things I've been talking about a lot is uncertainty, and really the fact that there's a spectrum of certainty. You're never really completely certain or uncertain. All we ever get is some certainty. So these are strategies to harness the positive aspects of uncertainty, to claim the certainties that you do have, what you know and what you are confident in, your past experience, how you can use everything that brought you to this moment in order to take on that next moment or next journey with greater confidence. Embracing the unknown rather than looking at the future as uncertain, as a big question mark. It's just unfolding. It's like a great movie, and you're getting ready for that next scene or that next chapter. You're a part of it. You're shaping the outcome, but there are certain things that are just unknowable right now at this moment. And of course, we can create more certainty by how we engage with the challenge and prescribe this path of learning for ourselves so that we can say, hey, even though I don't know exactly what's coming, I know I will be better in certain ways as a result of it. That's what this whole space is for me, for my business, for my team. We're all getting better. We're also talking about resilience, resourcefulness, renewal. These are concepts that are just so important and vital to how our teams and our organizations and our families get through these moments. We are helping people understand what they do control, because there's a lot you can't control right now, but there's also a lot you can control: your focus, your words, your contributions, your personal brand. What are you known for? And where do you set your standards? And how can you maybe adjust that and improve that and use this as an opportunity, again, to change your course of learning? Some of our audiences, like we've talked about here, are really trying to figure out this whole virtual thing. And they're saying, well, how can virtual meetings be more personal, efficient, and effective? And how can we embrace that and learn from it? Because the reality is everybody in the world is going through this same challenge right now. It's not just you. And it's still a level playing field. It's just a different game. And if you embrace this, then you can really stand out by far. This becomes an opportunity to differentiate yourself from others in your field or in your company. Stand out by far. Okay, so last thing is some on-camera experiences. Sales teams, managers are all trying to understand how they can better communicate and connect, which is the real key, with those that they're looking at through a lens. I've learned a lot about that from my experience on camera, owning those skills. You know, you got to learn to love the lens. You know how your intention matters. Remember, because what you think always comes across to the audience. Presuming positive. Because of this void, there's no exchange of energy. You just always have to have in your mindset that everything you're saying is landing well. And if you believe it, if you anticipate that, then it's highly likely that it's actually happening to a much greater degree. Using slides, yeah, with precision. You don't want to go to the slide deck immediately or for the duration of an entire presentation, because we're missing you. We're missing that opportunity for you to look eyeball to eyeball and connect personally in a deep, deep way. So use them strategically. Waste no time, and I'm moving on. Everything counts. All of you and all that you've learned, right? So your whole life experience is distilled to now. And what happens next is up to you. If you limit yourself to what's comfortable, you deny yourself what's possible. If you limit yourself to what's comfortable, you're denying you that which you want to accomplish that's just on the other side of that discomfort. So how do we lean in and make it happen? Let me show you. So over here, I do have an expression of that specific idea. If you limit yourself to what's comfortable, you deny yourself what's possible. In other words, I have just upped my commitment, up yours. Up your commitment, I mean. And when you take on a higher degree of challenge, you need to get specific about your goals and realize handling it uniquely, handling it well, you got to let go. You got to let go of what you can't control and focus on what you can. And you don't have to do it all at once. There's space between the throws and catches, what you were doing and what you're doing next. So instead of racing through these moments, learn to let them expand so that you can take advantage of the opportunities that are really once in a lifetime. You never really know where that next opportunity will come from. Oh, hello. But you need to grab on and make it happen.
Well, thanks very, very much for Dan, folks. That's how you do an online keynote. And that was just a sample of it.
In 10 minutes.
Yeah, wow.
So might have been 12. No, it was about 10 minutes.
That was great. Thank you so much, and thanks for showing us around the studio. It's really neat what you've done with it there. And we've now got a few questions from our attendees. Let me get that up in front of me here. And these are kind of to all of the panelists, so please feel free to jump in. The first question is, do our panelists suggest turning on or off attendee names attending a webinar? The questioner says, I would think by turning this feature on, everyone would be able to see who is attending, and so there may be more questions among attendees. And I'll take that to start with and say that a platform like what we're using right here with GoToWebinar, in this specific platform, that's not really an option, but it is definitely an option in some of the other platforms, and that's a consideration, something you want to take into consideration when you're considering the platform. So do any of you have any comments on that?
I would say yes, you do want your audience to be known out there. We just completed a pretty big project where we did ask the people sometimes to turn on their video for questions, so that there was that as Dan pointed out, that lens opportunity to really focus in. So I do think it's important to have a name on there, at least at minimum. And it depends, like Joey, you pointed out, the platforms are key in that piece.
Yeah, I would agree. If allowing the attendees to engage with each other is an important part of your virtual experience, to make sure that you have a platform and a feature that allows that. And for us, for the IAIP event, it was critical. And for attendees to see who was there, to be able to chat with them, to exchange contact information if that made sense, and they chose to do that. But yeah, it definitely amps up that engagement when you can see what everybody else is contributing.
Mm-hmm.
Next question, if the conference is essentially built on scholarly panels consisting of 3 to 4 presenters, how would you go about introducing variety into that?
Beth, we just finished one, and I know you can probably add to this too. It's a great question. We've done it a couple different ways. The most recent, where the speakers each did a very, very short video. I think it was under 5 minutes. And the chair kind of opened up the topic matter. The video played, so as a moderator, I would play the video in the background, and then the speaker would go on camera for a few minutes to add to it and answer Q&A, and then the next one would go in that scientific kind of method presentation. So that's one way.
Dan, you've probably seen a lot of variety in this arena. Any thoughts on this one?
Not a lot of thoughts. I was just trying to think about, in terms of, one of the earlier questions when you mentioned connections and forums and people involved, one of the ways that I thought OATUG did this really well, and Joey, you led this, was the forums that were created for specific subjects. And those discussion forums became really robust places. They're almost like the meetup conversations in the hallways. And so I was really impressed by that. And again, the opportunities are kind of endless.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't have to all be online webinars. Beth was talking about earlier the chat rooms that her attendees engaged in. So you don't always have to be on camera and talking into a microphone. There's plenty of online engagement that's going on in discussion forums. And yeah, we definitely did that with the OATUG event. Next question is to Beth, but I think Christine, you might also have some insight on this. Beth, what platform did you use for your virtual event? And then I would ask Christine, what platforms have you seen being used?
So we chose to use Zoom exclusively. It's a platform that our attendees were already accustomed to. We already had the license and the account for it. The team had already been trained on how to use it. We just had to figure out some additional features, but everything from start to finish was done in Zoom.
And did you use the webinar product or the meeting product or both of them?
Oh, good question. We used both. So the event was in Zoom webinar, but we did all of our pre-recording in Zoom meeting, and our happy hours in Zoom meeting to give more flexibility for attendees to turn on their cameras and engage.
And Christine, what have you seen in all of the varied events that we've done at Meeting Expectations?
Wow, we've worked on so many, from VFair, Shock Logic, Attendify, Jujama, Wovo, and a combination of what Beth has described is using some of those pieces that are out there that you can kind of pull together from Adobe Connect, GoToWebinar, Zoom. So we have looked under the hood of all of them. And again, you really have to go to what is your objective and what you're trying to accomplish, because each one of them is going to service you to a certain degree, and none of them are going to be 100% perfect. And think of it as your mobile app was never perfect. Everybody just wanted to get the mobile app, but they didn't understand what they wanted to really use it for. And that's where we're seeing a lot of people are right now. I need to have a virtual conference. Turn it on. Well, it's a little bit more than that. You really do want to investigate, understand what you need, what you're willing to pay for it. And then don't forget, there are plugins. There are lots of things you could do to enhance gamification. If it's not part of a tool you're looking at, there's probably a way to API enhance it or to kind of plug it in a different manner. So lots of ways.
And leading off of that, I just saw another question come in, and for you, Christine, you talked about the virtual expo. What platform did you use for that virtual expo?
I hope I'm pronouncing this one right. They all have funny names. Wovo,
Huva, I think it's Huva, maybe. I think that's what we called it.
It was really good though.
Mm-hmm. And this one's probably for Beth. How did you use, or did you use, volunteers during your event?
We used volunteers as the hosts or the moderators of sessions. They were integral in the planning process with the full convention task force planning team, but the production for the event was staff driven. So we didn't have volunteers helping with the behind the scenes pieces. They were putting all the pieces together from the planning stages on the front end, and the moderators, again, to help with facilitating.
And Joey, when I read that, I thought it was for me because I bring volunteers on stage during my live events quite often. And so I was thinking, well, yes, we've done that. We've promoted people to panelists on Zoom or bring them in as virtual presenters. I've had other volunteers, some of my speaker colleagues pop into my sessions from time to time in that way. But you can actually accomplish some of the same elements. And the whole concept of a volunteer on stage is one person represents everyone. And so if you can find a way to do that by sharing someone's story, bringing them forward, and then it becomes relatable to the audience, and again, increases that personal connection. One of the other questions I saw was about our studio and how many people are helping. And so I want to share that with you right now. So Shay, one of the things I'd like you to do, could you go to the first camera and then just pan all the way across the studio? And so we're going to go back to what is in the main stage set and then pan across. Here's me back over here in the library room. And then over here, we have the classroom. So it's kind of like a triangle space. Shay, my wife, is on camera. Shay's an amazing, incredible videographer and producer and writer. And also, I'm going to turn this on my team so we can also switch to that, give you guys some light. This is Shay on camera and Stephanie and Shay. And so Shay is right now camera operator, kind of chief technician, producer. Stephanie's doing all the switching. So over here on this device here, this is our sound system. This is our ATEM switcher, which is Blackmagic. Everything's Blackmagic, all our cameras. This is a HDMI switcher. You want to throw those guys over there for me, okay? Could you do that? Yeah. And so so a lot of things. So but Shay's been the mastermind in putting this together. It is a sizable investment, but a really worthwhile one, again, because it's for the long term. It's for the long run. And so I'm just very blessed to have this team to work with. And then Shay's pulling that rope out of the way, bringing that back over here. And could you bring them up here and go to meeting? No, bring the HDM, the feed, HDMI feed. So one of the other things I was going to show you is that HDMI switcher also enables us to pull in to any monitor on the screen to pull in the feed from the meeting. And so instead of reading questions on a monitor by looking on here under the camera and essentially breaking eye contact with the audience, I could actually include the audience in on that experience. And we're getting some glitchiness right here, but reading the questions, interacting with all of you. Again, this reinforces the fact that this is live because we've had the question, some people saying, wow, it doesn't even look live because it is so seamless. It looks pre-recorded. So we want people to know, nope, this is really happening. You're here, I'm here, I see your questions, and we are together. Yeah,
That's
and mistakes
cool.
happen, and it's cool.
Let's see, do we have any other questions coming in? Doesn't look like it. We've gotten a thank you from the audience. Yeah, that's it for questions. So we'll wrap it up. So thank you, Beth, Christine, and Dan for sharing your insights and your experience making virtual events engaging. And thanks to everyone who joined us for the panel discussion today. As a reminder, the recording of this webinar will be available in the next few days on the Meeting Expectations website at meetingexpectations.com. And special thanks to Dan for joining us and sharing your experience from the perspective of a speaker, and to anyone looking for an entertaining and engaging speaker with an important message that is both timely and timeless, as you've seen. Please connect with Dan at danthurmon.com. Meeting Expectations is a full-service event and association management company, and we would love the opportunity to talk with you about your challenges and your successes regarding events or associations. So please drop us a line at info@meetingexpectations.com, on our website at meetingexpectations.com/contact, or connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter. Thanks again to everyone for joining us today. Have a great day.